Good morning, international guests, colleagues, students, and people at home following the live stream of the Symposium Boundaries Time. This is the third day of the 10th edition of the International Photography Symposium and Exhibition organized by the Studio of Photography of the Faculty of Design and Art at the University of West Bohemia. 9 international guests accepted our invitation to participate in the exhibitions and lectures, and 5 of them have been teleported from their homes in the US, UK, Israel, Austria, and Slovakia to Pilsen. 3 of them are still here: Chris Fraser, Roei Greenberg, and Mark Yashaev. Don't ask what happened to the other 2. Teleportation and some kind of early morning attempt to add some sense of mystery to the whereabouts of symposium guests, I blame it on my colleague Vojtěch Aubrecht, who compared my appearance in a photo taken by Roei yesterday with Kriton, a fictional character in the 1980s British science fiction situation comedy Red Dwarf. Now, Kriton is a mechanoid on board of the Nova 5, a spacecraft originally from Earth. Kriton sends out a distress call, claiming that the entire male crew died when the Nova 5 crash landed on a planetoid, while the female crew are stable but injured. So I accept my duties. Nova 5 most certainly needs a curator. Space art is the future. And in fact, the Belgian artist Paul van Hooydonk's small sculpture titled Fallen Astronaut was placed on the moon by the crew of Apollo 15 in 1971. It has been there for 15 years and you didn't even know it. Intergalactic curating, I am on it. So here on Earth, boring, on this day, on the 22nd Kislev 5782, because now I'm following the Hebrew calendar, we will meet 2 participants on the global system of interconnected computer networks. Yikuan, who is based in Shanghai, and Libuše Jarcovjáková, who lives and works in Prague. So if you're ready, buckle up and let's start this symposium. Our first guest of this morning is Yikuan, who joins us online from his home in Shanghai. Yikuan graduated from the MFA program of the Film and Video Department of Mass Art, the Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston, and he teaches at the Department of Media Art of the East China Normal University in Shanghai since 2017. His work has been exhibited in museums and galleries in Beijing, Shanghai, and the United States. In his image making, he generates narratives from the intimate undercurrent of personal experiences, and he intertwines the mythological imagination of daily life with a voluptuous vision. Important in the work of Yikuan are the words limbo and ripple that are pronounced similarly in Chinese. His video work that is on display in the gallery here in Pilsen, titled Suburban Hysteria, is concerned with the de-urbanization and seeks to respond to the tendency of Disneyfication of Chinese cities by exposing the difference between the center and the margin, or the city's edge. The margin, the border, the suburban area might be affected by the rapid expansion of the center and, according to the artist, finds itself in an uncertain space and an uncertain time. Yikuan, thank you not only for your availability and participation, but also for your insightful explanation on your video, Suburban Hysteria. We are ready to listen to your presentation. Thank you.
Hey guys. I see Vojtěch as well. So should I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, good morning. Yes, my name is Yikuan, last name first. And I teach image-related courses at East China Normal University in Shanghai, and also working with image. I would like to thank Jane as well as Wojtěch for the invitation. It was a great pleasure to participate in this exhibition and symposium. Even though I couldn't be there in person, I could still feel some of the indirect joy through the screen on Instagram in the last couple of days. I visited the University of West Bohemia back in 2018 when I gave a lecture at your place on a topic related to the mythology elements in Chinese contemporary art. First time meeting with Wojtěch, who are a very open-minded and person, and allowed me to come there and mess around as a young man. I think last time, luckily, the students doesn't seem to speak much better English than I did. My English was really not very good, and especially in the like a talk, like a professional level. But maybe students were just pretending that they are bad as well. So that's maybe really bad. I don't know, but so it kind of gave me a chance to mess through last time. Anyway, recently I was also stressed out about what kind of content to give with, and I spent a lot of time thinking about time and boundaries. So I delayed replying to Jane's email. I think at that time it would be a waste of time for both of us to talk without any content ready. So thanks again for Jane's patience. One of the places on the University of West Bohemia campus that really strikes me is the studio for, I think, for the digital media, and also the large looping lawn outside. It's like a very unique theatrical design, and it's very, very impressive. With the green area outside, it's suddenly turned into an auditorium looking into the studio if you open the door. And the inside suddenly becoming a stage. So they can both have completely opposite functions if you are in the mood. So the outside can be a stage, the inside could be an auditorium as well. No matter what, it's like a very deep, the design does the job, a very good design. It instantaneously linked the two completely different functional spaces. I think the boundary between them is not only dissolved, but the two are immediately united. Discussing issues like boundaries makes me really nervous, even scary, because it is too big. It could be physical and psychological as well. It's not only about right and wrong, black and white. Sometimes it's also about ambiguity, especially in English. That makes me nervous too. So please forgive me if I screw up. I want to concentrate on this ongoing education project that I started called Limbo. And there are some crucial points in my association with the word limbo, and also the boundary, because they have a really close relation together. Limbo itself is a word of multiple meanings, and has many cultural references. One of the best known, it's like a puzzle platform video game called Limbo. It looks like this. And also, if you like Japanese anime, there's one called Naruto. In this manga, Limbo is described as an in-between dimension, which is connected to the real world, but cannot be seen by people without the spatial viewing ability, Renegade. Yeah, it's a very cool eye, very cool stuff. And also a large number of films either have the name Limbo or have the content related to Limbo. For example, Christopher Nolan's Inception. In this film, Limbo is a deep subconscious level, far beyond the awake state, and it's like a state in which the characters may be trapped forever. Yes, there's a lot of films that are related to Limbo. I won't go into the classics because it's too many, but there is a really good one from Hong Kong this year, which I recommend it to everyone. I think if you want to understand the meaning of the word, you still need to look it up in your own native language, and you might find some interesting explanations as well. Every time when I talk about words and languages, Wittgenstein comes to my mind with a very tricky smile and saying all problems are all the problems of language. Yes, enjoy. I will enjoy this awkward game, but I will try to. I will. And okay. So some of the meanings of Limbo are very serious as well, and it's like I said, it's similar to the word boundary. In some theology concept, Limbo is like the afterlife condition of those who die in original sin without being assigned to the hell of the dent. So as you can see the picture here, the first circle of the hell is, this picture is depicted in Dante. Dante's 14th century poem, Inferno. Yes, the first part of the circle is called Limbo. And there's also other 8 circles as well. It's corresponding to the classifications of sin. So the first circle, Limbo, if you are in there, it's like the circumstance that you live internally in the, like a castle, in a castle set on a verdant landscape like this. But forever you will be removed from the heaven. We know, for example, that languages like Ancient Greek and Ancient Latin, which have the same roots and belong to the Indo-European family, and they are very directly related to each other. And that later Latin, because of the Roman conquest, borrowed and imitate many of the seemingly more civilized Greek words. Not only did it influence Rome culture as a whole, but it causes the boundary between the 2 languages more interesting. This evolution was, of course, within a large historical context. It's very universal, it's very centripetal. The Limbo I want to talk about today tends to evolve more in a centrifugal, personal, a kind of irrational kind of way, even in the experience of failure of using language. This is how Limbo community starts. Limbo gives a very, very strong sense of marginality, like a group of leftover, unimportant people or subjects, and generally speaking, objects without power, right? It reminds me the state of art students and the environment that I work with. It is still largely in a very inflexible mode, where students on the margins of power seem to have to be recognized by some so-called expert or authority before they can be considered that to have the ability to make good art, as we usually call it, fine art. The role of the teacher is still, doing things in a way that is based on the idea of giving knowledge and orders. But what we really need to realize is how to drive the students' own will, how to empower them, how to make them want something by themselves. So the students shouldn't be saying, I will be, but I already am. I think art education itself should be an attempt to explore a path of self-education. The feeling of being on the edge, such as at the bottom of the art industry, is so similar to the half-dead state of limbo. And yeah, to be honest, I'm just as marginal as my students. We are always talking about the margins, both in and out of the class. What we want to do is to create a community that emphasize the notion of community, trying to confront and use this limbo, even use this limbo state together. Because both my students and I share the same kind of affective atmosphere, the effect of marginality. Okay, go back to the word itself, apart from the sense of marginality. Another thing that fascinates me is the pronunciation. Language, I think, grows out of ambiguity. And when we learn a new language, we often look for similar words in our mother tongue to replace the pronunciation so that we can remember it. The influence of localism on each other is sometimes more pronounced. It leads to the formation of dialects that, pronunciation, it's also like in the process of imitation, and also it creates deviation. Therefore, a new way of speaking comes out. Sometimes it starts with failures, like you cannot really pronounce other languages, but I think failures sometimes create something more interesting as before. And I also think the different languages always find a way of neutralizing each other. Okay. In China, we have an idiom. It's called 五里一风俗，十里一方言. It means, yeah, it looks like this. It means that every 2.5 kilometers, there are different customs. And when you double it, there are different dialects. And language is thus constantly changing and regenerating. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, and more, just like cells. Yes, to put it in a more advanced way, it could be also be what Derrida calls difference. The ambiguity of language is sometimes a great treasure for artists, and also sometimes can be very useful when you trying to name your work. What is clear is that this idiom I just said describes a time of certain closeness. Now, on the contrary, the languages is more homogeneous and less and less spoken in the traditional sense of minority culture. As they feel, I think, a little bit more tactic, and sometimes they don't really want to learn it, and they invent new internet forces and creates new context. But in reality, the situation seems less optimistic because the aim is mostly for convenience, so that the richness of meaning is lost in the process of evolution and becomes simplified and stereotyped, and it can change faster than the algorithms especially being monitored, inevitably leading to a path of what's the term? Homogenization, I think, as well. Sorry, I may have gone a bit too far. Let me bring the subject back again. The word Limbo is pronounced almost exactly the same as the Chinese word Limbo. The word was used in classical Chinese to describe a woman who walked very lightly and completely in silence. Later in wuxia, like traditional Chinese martial art novels, it became a name of a great kung fu skill that allows you to walk on water, similar to a dragonfly floating on water. Or if you do it well, you could even fly around. If you have seen Hong Kong action movies from the 80s and 90s, you will probably know what I'm talking about. The picture is from a scene in Li An's film called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, right? Where the leading roles are fighting on bamboo. It's crazy. So of course they can fly on water. Okay. On the other hand, the word literally and directly means Limbo means a small light ripple. Going back to what I said earlier about the effect of marginality, although we can't make waves like a tsunami now, but we can create small light ripples. Even we are just a group of small insignificant stones, and we can still influence each other through the ripples. And not only with the boundary between the two come into play, but perhaps a much strong force can be created to influence this almost frozen boundary in the direction towards the center by using Limbo. I wasn't really actually sure as now when I first time when I thought of this, but I knew that it's definitely has something to do with art. Okay, there's another meaning from Limbo. It's like prison, which is in present I imagine to be the, what's it called? Panopticon, I think, yeah. It's like a panoramic prison designed by the British philosopher Jeremy Bentham. It's like a circular building. The ring is divided into a number of small cells, each running across the cross section of the building, and each cell has 2 windows, one facing inwards, opposite the watchtower window, and the other facing outwards, allowing light to pass from one end to the cell to the other. Through the retro lighting effect, the guards on duty in the watchtower can observe the figure of the convict in his cell and thus monitor each movement, while the windows of the watchtower are fitted with shutters. Due to this symmetrical of sight, excuse me, the prisoner can only be watched and cannot see others, and he will always feel that he is under surveillance, thus allowing his behavior to develop in the direction of discipline. It concerns that all people in the present moment, I think. It is also a recognition like nowadays. How do we face this situation? The weird association with the word limbo started in early 2020, just as the epidemic was beginning. I was at home in quarantine for almost 3 months and didn't leave the door at all. It was painful, but also very joyful. Why? Because finally I could stop wasting my time on socializing and other nonsense. I had a lot of time to read books, to do meditations, and I can reorganize my hard drives and, of course, materials that I had never properly organized before. But most importantly, to clean my head. At that time, I read a book on the middle ground. So yeah, there's some images that I did during that time. And yes, and at that time I read a book called On the Middle Ground, the name of which has similarities with the state described in Limbo, an intermediate or uncertain state. There is a phrase in English called meet in the middle ground that I think is particularly relevant here. We cannot force people to abandon their standpoints immediately, but if we can invite them to take a small step out of a while, to reach a middle ground, to listen to each other's voices, especially from other perspectives, to take a look at other people's positions, that could be a big step forward. This tendency towards non-dualism, I think is very important when we discuss boundaries. Later on, if, maybe we don't have time. maybe next time I can talk a little bit about Limbo in the context of image making. Okay, go back to the book. It starts with the paths of young Chinese artists in the 90s in the context of contemporary art. And this is the category. It talks about a kind of unofficial and a kind of inhabited movement. And this had a great impact on me, thinking that this was the kind of education methodology I wanted. But after reading it, I also found some problems because there's such a big gap between the 90s and the present, especially now that we are in a kind of epidemic. I guess someone in this series of Symposium definitely talks about, when they talks about boundaries, they definitely talk about epidemics and viruses, I think. I don't know if I can tell something new. I will try. Okay. I might like to quote something from an article by Boris, a very good art theorist. The article named Education by Infection, where it says that infections was particularly useful in education in the age of epidemic. Although this was written over a decade ago, he compares the movement of students in art schools to receive new aesthetics to infection. And in it, he also mentioned Martwich. He describes a range of, yes, this is the classroom of Martwich. So he described a range of art styles like Cézannism, Cubism, among them as effects of different aesthetics infections metabolized in the artist by bacilli of one aesthetics kind or to another. The artist catches them with the sense of risk and danger. Of course, when somebody becomes ill, you call a doctor, but Martwich thinks that the role of artist is different from the doctor's role or any kind of technician, trained as they are to remove deficiencies and malfunctions to restore the integrity of the falling body or a falling machine. Instead, this is very important, his model of artist and for the teaching of art follows the trope of biological evolution. Artist, this is what he said. Artist needs to modify the immune system of their art in order to incorporate new aesthetics bacilli to survive them and find a new inner balance and also a new definition of health. If artists try to resist, the effects are obviously disastrous. They fall to the side and prematurely age. The quality of their work suffers. The works become irrelevant for the world they are living in. Martwich sees the art school as the best defense against this artistic degradation. The closed world of the art school keeps bacilli permanently circulating, and students permanently infected and sick. And most important, precisely because the art school is closed and isolated. Of course, it's almost 100 years ago. The individual bacilli can be identified, analyzed, and breed, as is also the case with isolated sterile medical laboratories. The isolation of the art school can be an attack on the health of students, but it offers the best conditions for breeding the bacilli of art. I think this infection is very similar to the ripples in Limbo that I was talking about. These are authentic bacilli is not only given by the art school, but the students need to limbo each other as well. Okay, go back to the word of limbo. If you remember, I just said in the circle they live internally in the castle set on a verdant landscape. But in our school, fortunately, it's not internal. It's temporary. I did some research when I was wondering what image logo to use to present Limbo. It was last year, and at that time I realized that Chanel's logo is so powerful. And I did some explanation, and this was the final result of the logo. The approximate equal sign is more like water, like ripples, and this is towards unknown. Yes, I think this is what I can say about it. Okay. For the time being, we have only built an online platform only on WeChat. It's like with a WeChat subscription, and yes, I can maybe show a little bit of it. Yes. Because Limbo is still very young, and it's like in a bit of trial, so we don't have an official website or other ways of spreading it yet. In the future it will. So now there are 3 sections that Limbo community is working on. The first one is like a talk show for hot news. Not necessarily needs to be directly related to art. So during last year, there was a lot of hot news, such as the video game called Animal Crossing, right? Yeah, which was very popular. So we did we did radios online as well, and also article about it. Because at that time it was crazy, like people cannot go out, they can only play video games, and this is a very good video game. Some people even making their own exhibition in the game itself. And yes, during that time as well, we talking about one of the few public spaces allowed it to be shared in China at that time, apart from hospitals, is the rooftops on buildings. Yes, and this one, yes, was that we did a radio talk show too, and some of our students shows their performance on the rooftop during the epidemic, and also some related artworks. So yeah, this is the first section, and the other two sections are focused on, of course, presenting students' work. One for individual students' work, and the other for collective projects. We are currently preparing an real, like, offline exhibition for the end of December, which will be more oriented towards the notion of improvised theater. Sorry. Yes, and maybe I can show a small clip. This is the rehearsal for the past few days, just very short. Yes, it's the image trying to convey, as you can see, the margin and the center. Yeah, it talks about that. Yes, I think, yeah, as I said at the beginning, about the unique area in your school. Yeah, the design itself is very Limbo, and it creates a sense of distantiation within the play, where the people sitting on the lawn can see the filming in the studio, which is itself a performance with a sense of staging. And on the contrary, the people in the studio can see people outside as performers as well. I think it's like the best proof of breaking the in theater, breaking the fourth wall. Of course, like we said, Limbo. Yes, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Yikuan. Do we have questions from our audience? Could you exit the screen share mode if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yeah, great, thank you. Questions? No. I was actually very interested when you mentioned maybe briefly the philosopher Jacques Derrida.
Right.
On the first day of the symposium, we had a presentation by Eva Bobrowska. She works for the Academy of Art in Warsaw. She's an artist and a philosopher, and she's very much involved in like the study of the work of Jacques Derrida. Especially, you know, like what you mentioned in terms of difference and how language changes over time, like you mentioned, like cells. And actually, to my surprise, the philosopher Derrida doesn't really have like an institute for the study of his work in Europe. He's well known, definitely among philosophers, but he has a great following in California. How is that actually in Shanghai or China? Is he like part of the curriculum, like, or did you bring him to the attention of your students?
I think Derrida was very, very popular, I think 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago in Shanghai. There's another school called Tongji University. And there was, I think, a great philosopher also teaches there nowadays, whose name is Lu Xinhua, and he started to translate a lot of Derrida's work. And I was very young. I know the story after, like a couple of years ago. And yeah, during that time, he started to share a lot of ideas, concepts, notions about difference. And I personally, and honestly, I'm not really familiar with Derrida, but I think, familiar with Stigler. It's also associated with technology kind of philosophy. Maybe I used the wrong words in English, the wrong term, but they have similarities. And through Stigler, I think I understand what is difference and what is I'm sorry, I can't remember the term. Deconstruction?
Yeah, deconstruction. No, I'm not an expert myself, although I did study philosophy, but it's too long a time ago. But it really connects to many of the things you're talking about when you speak about limbo and sort of being in the margin. Maybe also for our audience here, like because it's quite inspiring. Derrida spoke about the par ergon, which means sort of the edge or the margin, as who Yikuan is explaining. So the edge of art, of text, of society, even of philosophy. And he came up with this sort of visualization, like, you know, what if a thief comes inside your house and he steals only the frames of your artworks? You would look differently at these artworks, and they would actually be not the same artworks anymore. And he translates that also to the idea of a text, like a footnote is actually a part of a text, but it can also change the identity of the text. Your comparison with Limbo and sort of the situation that art students are in, like some kind of a safe space, yet not yet part of the art world, hoping to be part of the art world, is very interesting. And in terms of curating, because this also connects to me, like everything you said about Limbo is these ideas of Derrida, and this your ideas about Limbo and the work you do in this sort of kind of Limbo community. have been described by other curators as a para-curatorial practice. So the para refers to the par ergon of Jacques Derrida, which basically says that the exhibition is not the main focus anymore. Events organized in the margins of the exhibition are equally important. It could be a workshop, a lecture, an excursion, having dinner, which we do a lot, going for a walk and talk. And I'm sure you're familiar with Eflux, New York, and people like Anton Vidokle and Rirkir Tiravania, who are, well, Tiravania especially, the Thai-American artist who organizes cooking sessions with students, and they all cook together and have dinner, a meal together. So thank you so much, Yikuan. It's very interesting. We hope to be able to invite you in the near future, so that we can actually, have a in-person meeting and talk more about your Limbo community, because it seems like something we would like to have also.
Thank you all for having me. Yeah. Student becomes much more compared to the beginning.
Thank you so much,
Thank
and thank you for your time and for joining us online. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We conclude the Boundaries Time Symposium with Libuše Jarcovjáková. She studied at FAMU, the Film and TV School of the Academy of Performing Arts in Prague. She spent months in a creative residency program in Japan, lived for about 7 years in West Berlin, and she is based in Prague. And her work has been shown in exhibitions in Prague, Pilsen, Brno, Ostrava, Bratislava, Berlin, New York, Paris, Arles, among other places. Libuše's work has been described by curator Lucie Černá as authentic, visual, life-affirming. Jarcovjáková's photographs tell a story, her own story. From the very start, she took photos in a personal, clearly profiled style that blends rawness with poetry. Snapshots seemingly taken without forethought, mostly using flash, at angles in which the subject has no opportunity to escape or notice that they have become the victim of the uncompromising and predatory lens. Libuše is interested in autobiography, intuition, and shows a compulsive need to record everything. The themes of her work, the street, night, sex, work, alcohol, love, depression, are made with a self-destructive spontaneity. She focuses her camera on nightlife, minority groups, and marginalized people. In the exhibitions in Pilsen and Prague, selection from the series West Berlin 1985-1990 is shown. photos that feel a bit like the result of a long existential journey, moving from one night into another night in a city cut by the long wall, both isolating and separating, physically and mentally, laying bare a life lived recklessly amid a period of political repression. Libuše, thank you for joining us online today, and we are ready for your presentation. Hi.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I hope you told already everything, almost everything. I hope I will be able to share my presentation. I'm sorry I can't be with you personally. I don't feel well and it's bad time for experimenting. So just I try to start my presentation. Okay, just a moment. So take me a short time. Okay. So I have a little bit okay. So I was born in Prague 52. Both my parents are parents, painters, and it was for me very, how to say, very inspirative because I was living in a really rich visual life. I have had a lot of painters. I don't have a lot of pictures of myself when I was young, but I have such a painters for my mother. This is one of my first auto-portrait. I am here in the age, let's say 16, with my first camera 6x6 Pentagon 6, and there are already a lot of things which are typical for my work. At first, this technical perfection, and also working with the double repeating photos. Could you see the whole projection or just only small?
Libuše, we see the small icons of your the thumbnails of your images, basically.
So on my screen it's the whole projection, so I don't know what to do. Sorry.
I think the best thing to do is to cancel the share screen mode and go back to it and take the option to go full screen.
Okay, I try. Sorry. Stop share. And again. This is here. Is it better now? Yes. Perfect. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so this is one of my first auto portraits, as I said, and this is another one. I used here the photos which is not retouched because my negatives are mostly very messy. This is one photo of my schoolmates, and here I am in the age, let's say 19, 16, 17, I don't know exactly, at the graphic school. And there are several photos from that time, and I was already sure at that time it is not possible to show at the school in the school these photos because they were really very strange, and I was really a very bad student. And my aim at the time was to be writer, not to be photographer. Anyway, I did strange photos all the time of my life, and this is one of very strange project I did in the day I lost my virginity. This is my lover, and I have to say, probably it's nowadays it is not unusual, but at the time doing such a photos were really strange. There are several photos from the time I was the student of the graphic school, And my fear from the people were so strong that I was not able to approach people directly. I have the people only from behind and small. And it was for me really horrible to do some work like reportage or portraits or something like this. And it's very funny. Shortly after I finished the school, I started to work in the factory, in the printing house. And because it's a long story, but my idea was to improve my political profile to get allowance to study on the FAMO, on the film academy. So I started to work in the factory, and during the nights I have seen many very visual attractive scenes. So I started to take photos, and suddenly was my fear away, and I was able to approach people directly. Okay, some of them are sleeping, but anyway, I was there doing the live photography, working with the people, and it was the beginning of my big interest in the people and in the human stories. And okay, I did it for, let's say, 1 month, 2 months, and then it was somehow recognized by the political leadership of the factory, and it was forbidden for me to continue. There are several photos from the 70s, 80s, from the streets of Prague. And I started to make a lot of photos during the night. This is the famous swimming pool on the river Vltava, which is, I'm living near of this place, and I loved this area of Prague. Some still life from my night's walks. And I will show you a lot of auto portraits, so I hope it will be not boring. One of very important part of my life was being with the friends in the pubs, and I visited several of them, and this is one of them where I photographed a lot. It must be 78, let's say, or something like this. Uh, 77, I started to be interested in the Roma community. At the time, we used gypsies, and for the Roma community was it normal. So nowadays I'm using always this Roma people, and there are photos from one wedding in Prague. I love to be with them. I love the ornaments. I love the atmosphere. I love their ability to live fully in the present. And I have had a lot of friends in between them. I spent a lot of time with these gypsies or Roma families in Prague. This is one funeral. It was a little bit hard to do this work because, for example, when I finally started to studying FAMO, 77, I was told it's useless to photograph Roma people because there is Josef Koudelka and he is the best, and everybody are just only epigons. But for me, was it being with them was very interesting, and I loved just to be the part of their life. I traveled with them to the Eastern Slovakia, and I lived in sometimes with them for weeks or something like this. And for me, it was also a very important part of my life. There are several more photos from the night streets. For me, was it like a scene from theater? This construction which should protect the pedestrians for being killed with some rotten buildings. Behind this photo is a very funny story. I came back, I went home at 3 o'clock at night, and I did, as usual, some night photos to this wooden construction. And suddenly came a woman which spoke German, broken German. She wanted to be photographed, and at the end I find out this is the post officer from northern Bohemia who was on his funny trip in Prague. Let's say 82, 83, I don't know exactly. I started visiting the one of two gay club in Prague, and from the first night I was very happy to find this place, and my big idea was to take pictures there, which took me a long time before I was invited to make photos. And for, let's say, period of 2 years, I photographed regularly on some parties or some celebration. Unfortunately, it was not possible to make some photos with the available light without flash. So it was also the reason why I, at the beginning, I was not very satisfied with the photos. I have a feeling they are too theatrical, too artificial. But the reason was I wanted to be seen, because there were people, they were not, they wanted to be, they won't be photographed, and using flash was the best solution how to take photos just only from people they want to be on photos. In the moment, we are preparing book from this tea club together with Lucia Cherna and with Polish graphic designer Anna Nalecki, and it would be hopefully the beginning of the next year ready. So I spent a lot of nights there, and I was really very happy to have this. It was kind of family life, very friendly and very like really it was very warm, let's say. In 83 I started to teach Czech language to Vietnamese worker. There were at the time almost 80,000 of Vietnamese which came here because of some agreement between Vietnamese and Czech government. I was spending with them a lot of time. There are photos on let's say like assignment, because they wanted me to make photos from them because they wanted to send photos to the families. So I did a lot of such photos. That's me as a teacher. It was really very funny because we didn't have any vocabulary, any textbook. there were no measures how to teach the Czech language. Just only we teacher used some intuition, and we try our best. We have had really very nice relationships with each together, which was for the Vietnamese really rare, because the society were very, very racistic, and they it was strange time for them. For example, this young man, Hua, was one of the most intelligent people I met there. And one day he was found dead, and nobody, and it was not find out what's happened to him. So it was also very, sometimes I was present to very sad stories. I also have had the short period teaching Czech language to to Cuba people. I lived with them for 3 months in some small hotel outside of Prague. And, again, they wanted to have photos for the family, so I did this serial. There are photos from 80s, from, let's say, from my ordinary life. It was, by the way, my first husband here, cooking something very good, some potatoes. Behind these photos is also a very interesting story. I have a friend, Jana. She has 3 children, and she hated Christmas. And their kids told me lately that during the Christmas, mostly the tree was the whole time in the top. So. Okay, this is another story. Name for it for this cycle is Killing Summer, and I started to have a very complicated relationship with one woman. It took at about 3 months. I knew from the beginning it's really somehow dead end story, and as in many times in my life, I used photography as a, let's say, therapeutical tool, something which I used to understand the situation, which was like a reflection, which helped me to find my place and my position. So I did these photos during this time with her. I was sure it will be never ever published, these photos, and it was not for public at all. Same as many of my photos. I was working in isolation, without any audience, without having the possibility to show something from what I'm doing at all. Anyway, somehow I have had some inner engine, let's say, some inner necessity to do it, and mostly it was really good for me because I understood more what I'm living. I was living here in Prague, a very wild life and very turbulent life, but actually, slowly, step by step, I recognize it has no way out. No, I don't have any future, and also I felt I need something bigger. I need some new experience. So I managed, after a very complicated process, to marry somebody from West Berlin. And after, let's say, 3 years of administrative of the war with the officials, I moved to West Berlin. From the very beginning, I felt myself really pretty lost. I have no money, no friends, no language at the beginning, and only thing I knew was it's important for me to do it, to come through this, and my decision was to document, to write a journal and to take photos as a journal. So I did the whole time something which was really, let's say, describing of my inner, again, this let's say this meeting with something absolutely new, which was hard for me, and looking for the answers, who I am, where I am, why I am there. So I did this, let's say, kind of sad photos. The beginning was really hard, but step by step I learned how to live there, and step by step I find also the friends, and I have, after 3 months, I could speak more or less fluent. So I'm very happy I did this, and I'm very happy for these photos, because it's also, again, it's only history, this. During this time, I felt pretty lonely there at the beginning, because I came from Prague, where everything was possible. I didn't almost any money, and I have always, everywhere I have friends, and suddenly it was this loneliness. I did hundreds of selfies, again, which showing somehow my feelings, how I felt myself. I can't understand why I have this. It's probably a fixer in this in this well, I don't know the name of it. I have had good luck, and suddenly I have got the key from my own apartment, which was horrible, because it was some space which was used by the junkies before, but it was my own apartment, and I started to live there, and I was really very happy. The war was omnipresent. It was everywhere, and nobody knows. It was like to being in the cage and not knowing if you are outside or inside, because it was really so close being there. This is again from this my first apartment in Berlin at the beginning. again, I have to say all the photos was just only for myself. It was just only for my boxes. I did a lot of, I always developed the film, did contact sheets, and did some work copies or bigger copies, but it was almost nobody to show the work. So I didn't know if it's my work. It's how to. Okay, I didn't know how to. I have no critic, let's say, no feedback. I don't know if it was good or not, but again this necessity to do the almost every day some work was really strong enough to continue. I have had, this is the several photos from the fall of the wall, which was very, one of the most emotional event in my life. And I love these photos because it's for me somehow essence of it. During this period, I also visited Japan, and I spent there almost 8 months. And I worked during this time in fashion business, and but also I did a lot of autoportraits, and I did a lot of personal work, diaries. And somehow I continue all the time the same direction as before, just making some notes, some snapshots, some how to say, diaries, let's say, maybe. And I was writing always. Sometimes are the photos more documentary, sometimes more, let's say, subjective documentary, or more or less. I think my work has had a strong. There are strong influence from art, let's say, from paintings. From I don't think so. I was the usual documentarist, because I somehow I went always my special way. Even there are a lot of things which are pretty normal, let's say. This is another story which is from the period not far away from today. It's 10 years now. 1992, I came back to Prague. I started to teach on the Helichova graphic school in Prague. And I worked there till 2008, when in the full time. And then I started to have heavy depression, and I stopped to work. And suddenly, at the early 2018, my mother has a stroke, and I spent with her almost 2.5 years. In the time I took care about her for 24 hours daily. And at the very beginning, I felt I need something to survive, because I have had good luck that my mother was really very kind and very cooperative. But she was very like a child. And what was the most difficult on this time was it was all the time same, from the morning to the evening, from Monday till the Sunday, always the same things. And after a few months, I started to take photos from our life. This is one of the paintings she did. This is her autoportrait as a young woman. And I started photographing our life, and I did over 8,000 photos during this time. I started to use Canon camera, but it was really hard because mostly I needed to have one hand free for keep helping her. So I ended up with using my iPhone, and I used this very colorful application, Hipstamatic at the time. One of the reasons was that my mother was very visual, and she loved colors, and she loved to look at these photos because of the colors. I managed to help her that she started to draw with her left hand again. And we spent very intense several months. And I did repeatedly all the time the same photos from morning till the evening. And it was again this autotherapeutic tool, how to get something, how to understand and how to survive. She loved looking at the art books. She loved red wine. It was very, actually, it was really very colorful, the time with her. And I'm happy I have done it, even it was hard. This is the very, very last photos. I have here several photos just only for information from my exhibition in Arles, which was 2019. I have got really a huge opportunity to have this exhibition in the excellent space. And I have to say it was main venue this year in Church St. Anna. The curator was Lucie Černá, and it was really very grandiose because we have got from the director of the festival, the Bianco Czech, we have really free hand how we will show the photos. The architecture of the exhibitions is also the work of Lucie Černá, and we just came with the concept and it was accepted, and for me was it really very, very important period of my life. I have to say this exhibition was seen by almost 140,000 people, and it was by The Guardian at that year. The Guardian wrote it was the best photo exhibition of the year. And this is my latest work, which I have done for National Theatre. And these are the visual for the season. Sorry, it was, how was it? Okay. Okay, there is more of them. This is from my last exhibition in České Budějovice, which was now in the September, I suppose. And there is a photo from the book Evocative, which was done. It is not catalog of the exhibition evocative, but it is a book which we did with Lucia for the exhibition or about, and it's still available by the publisher Lucia Cherna. Okay. I have very bad feeling from my could you see me? No. Could you hear me?
We still hear you, but we can't see you.
Aha, so what I should do? Aha, this one? Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So I have very bad feeling of this presentation because I don't have any possibility to have contact, but hopefully you have had some sense from it. And if you have some questions or something you want to ask,
yeah,
I'm ready.
Questions from the audience coming from Chris Fraser.
Thank you for the wonderful talk. I'm curious, at what point did you start getting recognition for your work?
It goes slowly last 10 years, let's say. I was helped by the first interest came from my students, and I have had the first bigger exhibition 2008 in the famous Prague gallery Langhans, which was, but it was not my, we were tour there. And step by step, I have had some small projects exhibited. And then 2017, it was published the book, The Black Years, Černé roky, which was it is not a photographic book, it's or not mainly a photographic book, it's they are my diaries and photos, and this book started to be step by step pretty asked, and then suddenly I have got more and more opportunities, and finally I have got the possibility to meet the director of ARL, who saw the book. He told me he's not very interested in the book, but I should send him some photos from my vintage photos and from my archive. So I have done it. And shortly after this, he offer me this exhibition in ARL, and maybe I could say it was the real beginning of this, let's say, period. The book Evocative, for example, was on the list of 10 best books of the years from Aperture and Paris Photo 2019 also. Of course, the Corona changed a lot, but somehow I'm working not in just only for myself, and I have more and more opportunities.
Congratulations on this too late recognition of your work. I'm happy it happened.
God, thanks God, I'm still alive, and so thanks God, I have still hopefully something to say, also with some new work. For me, for example, this work for National Theatre was really hard for one time because I have to work in assignment. Hard was it also because of the Corona, because it was no regular time to do this posters. But they like it, the work, and I am really happy I have done it. So this is most recent thing. Yes.
Thank you, Chris, for your question. We have another question from Roei Greenberg.
Hi, and thank you for this very interesting presentation. I'm not sure it's a question, but I just wanted to comment. You mentioned quite a few times that all the work pretty much you have done was for yourself. So there was never, or as far as I understood it, there was never really an audience waiting or a client. And I think it's quite incredible because you really see it, like when you keep looking at those images like one after the other, and there's really like a very generous like personality behind it, and it all have the same kind of like you can see that the same person have created those images. And I found a lot of humor as well in even in the hardest images. Like there's always this, like, I don't know if to call it humor, but it's like sense of irony or chaos, or there's always an order. And it's like I found a lot of those images funny in a sophisticated way. I don't know how to put it otherwise. So thank you, and I think it's incredible body of work.
Thank you for your words. I have to say, in the moment, I am the part of one bigger project. It's already 1 year. We are working on the documentary movie, full-time documentary movie, which is the regisseur will be Klara Tasovská. And because of COVID, it will be mostly about my work, and the movie will be really based on my archive and my commentary, and it's another opportunity for me to have some, let's say, retrospective, because till now I have always shown just only the part of the work. Arlo was Czechoslovakia from 70s till 1989, and this movie, I hope it will be very visual and very. It's nice work till now, and hopefully the result will be good. It should be done 2023, and for me, it's really very interesting to have this opportunity to go really deep in my archive and see somehow the layers on the photos, and also to see some red lines which are going through all my work. And I'm really pretty interested how it will be resolved. So this is something which I am working on mostly in the moment.
Thank you, and looking forward to see that result.
And there are several foreign co-production, and till now it seems it should be the part of several festivals. So let's see.
Thank you, Roei, for your question. We have another question from Marek Yashaev.
Thank you for the beautiful presentation and your works. I must ask, because I saw your color work is so beautiful, but I saw it only in the end of the presentation, and in earlier works you didn't show us the color works. Did you make those choices because the financial reasons, because the color was more pricey those days, or the black and white gave you some kind of different feeling that you wanted to make on the viewer, you know?
I perfectly understand your question, and it's really more or less practical reason why I used mainly, or let's say 90% of my work is on black and white. I mean, till nowadays. Now I am working half and half, let's say, color and black and white. But at the time was really very difficult to get color negatives or color films. Mostly there were just only the DDR production Orvo, which was funny. And also I have another reason was I couldn't work with this photos in my darkroom. So it was really more or less practical reason for it. And I love very much color nowadays, but let's say it's really I'm working analog still or again. So all my work which I'm doing analog is black and white, and what I'm doing digital is color.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marek, also for your question. Any more questions from our audience? Libuše, thank you for your speech. The photos that you showed from about 1982, the gay club in Prague, sometimes nowadays we see on, let's say, social media like Instagram, students who are posting similar type of photos, of course, like you know, like in the current time, digital camera, like iPhone camera, these kind of things. But maybe more importantly, I was reminded of the New York-based artist Dash Snow. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Not yet.
He was called one of Andy Warhol's children in an at least in an article, together with Dan Cullen and Ryan McGinley, and he was quite a character in New York. Just like something that I want to say, just to quote part of the article. The artist Dash Snow rammed a screwdriver into the buzzer of his apartment the other day. He has no phone. He doesn't use email. So now, if you want to speak to him, you have to go to his apartment on the Bowery and yell up. And he won't come to the window and to let you see that he sees you. He has a periscope he puts up so he can check you out first. And he's pretty paranoid about lots of things in general. For instance, Dan Cullen and Dash Snow went to London together for the Saatchi show, in which they both had work. Also important to know is that Saatchi had bought one of Cullen's sculptures for $500,000. Saatchi got them a fancy hotel room on Piccadilly, but they had to flee in the middle of the night with their suitcases before it was discovered that they had created one of their hamsters' nests, which they've done quite a few times before. To explain, to make a hamster's nest, you know, hamster the animal, hamster's nest, Snow and Cullen shred up 30 to 50 phone books, yank around all the blankets and drapes, turn on the taps, take off their clothes, and do drugs, mushrooms, coke, and ecstasy, until they feel like hamsters. And the reason why I'm referring to Dash Snow, who, well, sadly predictable, died of an overdose in 2009, is maybe to come to the question if you sometimes encounter this raw, radically personal quality in the work of photography students that you may have contact with.
Sorry, could you tell me the question again? I didn't understand the end of your sentence.
The question is if you sometimes encounter this raw and radically personal quality in the work of photography students that you have contact with.
Mm-hmm. It's a hard question, actually.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. For me, for myself, is this aspect of being personal, being authentic, the most important thing. Probably I don't understand pretty well your answer question, because I don't know the name, the word encounter.
If you come across this type of work, if you
okay, yes, sure, yes and no. I love this when I see it. I think it's very, very important. And also, it is not necessary to live as a wild life as I used to live, or the other person you are speaking about. And I'm always happy when I found somebody who is doing these things, who is taking photos from his close to him, to his personality, I think it's very important, and it's photography is the perfect tool for it. So I am always happy when I see the project in this direction, let's say. Sorry, my English is sometimes up and down, so but hopefully now I answered the question properly.
Yes, thank you so much. Last chance to ask a question to Libuše. Vojtěch. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us online and for your amazing work. We're happy to also have you included in the two exhibitions, both in Prague and in Pilsen. Thank you also for trusting this curator that you have never seen before, with giving me approximately 30 of your photos to make a selection on the spot. We will return them safely, of course.
Super. It was sorry. Continue. Sorry, I interrupt you.
You can interrupt anytime if you want to.
It was only the possibility how to help you with the curating, because it was difficult without personal contact. I am very happy I was invited. I am not as much happy I have here. I'm going now to drink hot tea and sleep out my illness, and I hope you will continue with an excellent program and you will have excellent time.
Thank you so much, Libuše, and of course we wish you a speedy recovery. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, hopefully it will be.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Nice day.
So this is the end. Thank you so much, audience. Like, you've been changing a lot the past 2.5 days. I hope you enjoyed it. Yes. Okay. Thank you, international guests also. We had Fraser, Eva Bobrowska online. You remember her? She's speaking about philosophy and prisons. Tina Frank, she left this morning, but you remember her, of course, because she did a workshop with students and she had an amazing performance in the gallery. Ranaldo, also online. That guy from Sonic Youth, you remember him. Jana Hojstričová, yesterday morning. Roei, Greenberg, standing right there. Mark Yashaev, sitting right there. He's a bit tired, like we all are, I guess. And today online, Yikuan, I think also a really interesting presentation, and of course Libuše, Jarcovjáková. So great thanks to our international guests. Vojtěch Aubrecht, thank you for having started a photo atelier like 12 years ago, 11 years ago maybe. Technical crew in the back, thank you also for your work. Everyone who was involved in the backstage, like bringing us food when we really needed it, water, coffee, in order to survive. Everyone involved in all the administration regarding the organization of the symposium and the exhibition. Thank you so much. Lenka Koritkova, I see you there. Thank you so much. And so yeah, this is the end. We will do a lunch once again with students. So if you want to stick around, you can talk personally to our 3 remaining international guests. Thank you so much.